Hello and welcome to another episode of QA Bootcamp. My name is Daniel Campbell and I am going to be your QA Sherpa through this amazing world we call video game QA. Today we are going to be looking at impressions versus bugs. Now to be clear, one is your opinions and the other one is a flaw. Today we'll be looking at what a bug is versus what an impression is. Now if you're watching this video you likely already know what a bug is, but what exactly is an impression? They may call it something different in other studios, but in my experience impressions are your informed opinion about a game that you will share with the rest of the development team in order to start a conversation or get a change made that will positively impact said game. Basically, it's your opinion. So to reiterate, a bug is an unintended flaw within the game, while an impression is something that is a little more opinion-based. Now, an impression might be something that was unintentional, but it also might be something that was simply overlooked or has not been addressed yet in the development of the game. But there are some things that can sort of straddle the line between impression and bug. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few examples just to help clarify the point. Here we are in good old Red Faction Guerrilla. We are going to go ahead and start off a quick explanation between bugs and impressions. So a good rule of thumb for me at least is bugs are things that were definitely not intended, and impressions are things that were intended but may not be quite right, or at least semi-intended. Example for this is, say, the Rhino Pack, the thing that's on my back. If I were to push the button and it goes forward through walls and stuff like that, nope. Now, if I were to say that I felt like that was way too short, and it's impacting my gameplay, it's impacting the gameplay of what the player would be, I would go ahead and bug that as an impression, or not bug it, but I would set it up as an impression. Now, if I were to hit the button and it were to go like 300 miles an hour and launch me into space, that would be a bug because that's definitely not what anybody intended to break the game. Now, another good rule of thumb when it comes to impressions is you'll probably want to go through your manager. You'll want to make sure that you don't just inundate the developer with impressions, and they'll make sure that the relationship stays good between the developer and the QA department. So yeah, go through your manager when it comes to impressions. They'll probably tell you yay or nay. It's something that's greatly impacting gameplay. They will work with you and go to tell you about the developer and whether they're cool with having their work with impressions or not. So another good rule of thumb is when it comes to difficulty in QA, you will more than likely be ignored. A rule that I live by and a lot of other designers live by is if QA tells you something is too easy, completely ignore them, because QA literally plays the game like, hundreds of hours a month, and yeah, that's if they're telling you something's too easy, just ignore them. If they tell you it's too hard, better pay attention to them, because if QA tells you something is hard, it's probably very, very difficult, depending on which part of QA comes from. So again, go through your manager and stuff like that. So let's go and find a few examples between bugs and impressions. Sorry, that was a long and boring explanation. I'm going to go ahead and show you a bug that I know happens here. It's a very minor bug, still a bug though. So when I die, there is a menu that comes up and asks you if you want to continue, to load game, or exit the game. The cursor, the selection cursor, the box that goes around your current selection, appears a little bit before the actual words scroll in. It looks a little awkward, it's very minor. Let's go and take a look. And there it is. So yeah, I would probably bug that, document it, and let the developers know, because that definitely seems like something that was not intended. Someone didn't go into the code and into the development or whatever tools that they use to do that kind of thing, and intentionally tell it to do that. So here comes another bug. Whenever you're loading into this safe house in particular, there is a piece of debris that is clipping into another piece of geometry, and it kind of throws it in the air. Okay, it's not actually throwing it up this time because, of course, I'm recording. But I think I can still, because it is placed in the ground there. That's a bug in and of itself, but it's really obvious when you load it and it happens. Let me see if I can't get it to jump up. There we go. But yeah, I would bug that. See, that's definitely something that's not intended, so I would definitely bug that. Alright, so let's go ahead and use an example of an impression. An impression, you could say, is like the physics are a little floaty. You'll notice I'll kind of you know, float a little bit. I kind of glide more than I do jump. It's not very realistic gravity, but if you're on Mars, it probably would be realistic because, you know, Mars has less gravity. But I digress. If you feel like this was impacting your gameplay, like the floatiness, you would definitely maybe send up an impression about it. You would write it up, send it to your supervisor, and they would sort of make the call on whether they should send it up or not. But there are some instances actually that sort of straddle the line between bug and impression. Let's go ahead and use this for instance real quick. The backpacks. You'll notice that they all use the exact same graphic for the jetpack. And there's a reason for that as far as development wise goes, but the player doesn't know that. So basically the only thing you have to go is the name of them, and then maybe a little bit you know, self-descriptive, but at the same time they're all using the jetpack thing, and it may be a little confused that you might not very well understand what exactly they do. So that kind of straddles the line. Like, is this intended? Like, is it just using the wrong graphic for each one? That it's all using the jetpack one? It should be using one specific to the backpack that you're selecting. So yeah, it's something that could impact gameplay, but it might be something that's, you know, they're kind of okay with. They kind of meant to it. So this, if there's ever one that kind of straddles the line, you're ever kind of not quite sure, you would actually bug it. You wouldn't send it up as an impression. The reason for that being is because if you're asking the question of, man, that's kind of strange, if you're noticing it, that means somebody else is going to notice it as well, as far as like someone else on the QA team. So the reason you would send it up as a bug is because it would be sent up the chain to the developer that's responsible for it. They would make a call, and they, even if it was marked as, you know, shippable, we're going to live with this, then that would be documented. That would be somewhere in your documentation inside your database. So the next person that sees this and thinks it's strange, they can go to bug it and say, oh, it's already been it's already been addressed, and they're not going to fix it, so they can not worry about it. So that's an example of one that could be on the line. So let's go ahead and find a few more examples just so hammer home the point, the difference between a bug and impression. Okay, this is something you could probably put as, say, an impression. So there's these mining nodes, these ore deposits. So you can mine them for ore, and they give you scrap, which is sort of the currency. You could say, all right, well, they're not even worth stopping for. They only give you, you know, usually 10. I got an upgrade to do 12. They only give you 10 scrap a piece. That's like barely worth stopping for. And if you feel that, you know, feel that way about it, and so obviously set it up to your supervisor, you can maybe get it changed. I would put it up as an impression. And like I said, usually coming from QA, impressions are largely ignored. But there's the occasional, you know, developer that's cool with it. Whenever I was working on the outfit, Relic, I was working with Relic on that, and they had to be some of the, like, I've worked with a lot of developers, and they had to be some of the most open and awesome and honest developers I have ever worked with in my entire career. Like, they were super, super cool the entire time. It's a shame that game didn't turn out better and then sell better, but yeah, I digress. But anyway, yeah, it's really going to depend on the developers you work with. So yeah, that's another example of something that would be an impression rather than a bug, because a developer had to very intentionally assign these to drop 10 scrap a piece. So that's not an accident. That's not, you know, something that was unintended. So another example of an impression. Okay, this one's sort of straddles the line, I would say, between bug and impression, but I think it would probably fall more on the bug side, so you would definitely bug it. You'll notice the icon for the Red Faction mission is yellow background with a black fist, but we're setting up a new base of operation extremely hostile to outsiders. So you'll notice in the mission briefing that the Red Faction icon is a red background with a black fist. So extremely minor, but it is something that you would probably bug rather than impression. But it's another one of those ones that maybe kind of straddles the line a little bit. Like I would call it a bug just because it's an inconsistency. But other people, the developers, might call it just a matter of opinion. They might call it an impression. So that's another example that maybe kind of falls on the line. And anytime one falls on the line between bug and impression, I would definitely bug it. Alright, this could be an impression where I feel like the enemy swarms you really fast after you get notoriety. It doesn't give you much chance to sort of set up shop, and they are very good shots. They will snipe you from pretty far away. They're a little tanky, but yeah, if any of those things were a concern to you, you could definitely bug it up, or not bug it up, but write it up as an impression, and you know, send it to your manager, and hopefully they'll they'll see things your way, and you know, you'll be able to write up the impression. But you know, there's always that chance that they'll say no, that's the way it is. Just don't be overly attached to your impressions. You're not a designer. That's not what you were hired for. You were hired to be a QA, and impressions is just something that you sometimes get to do. It's not something that is part of your job description. It is not something that you will be appreciated for, because after all, you are telling them that you think that you know better than them. Some people take it that way, that you think you know better than them on what's best for the game. So while it might not be your intention, that is the way a lot of developers who are sensitive will take it. And we'll go ahead and call that for the day. If there's any questions that you have, please let me know. Put them in the comments below, and I will try to answer them. Thank you very much, and have an awesome day. Bye.